Hey everyone, what's the kindest thing every killer has done? A bizarre question to ask, but an interesting one I think. What slither of good can we find within these monsters? Bear in mind, this is by no means me trying to nullify their wrongdoings, it's just a fun exercise to try and see if there's any good at all that we can find in these monsters. So let's get into it. Trapper has a legitimate one, which is his attempts to help the Macmillan Estate workers to get better working conditions and rights. His father Archie was a very abusive and cruel boss, and when Evan is younger, he does try and help his workers. He does end up turning on them, but there is a point in time where Evan despises his father and sympathizes greatly with his workers. Wraith's kindest act is probably his attempts to leave and start his life over. Despite the trauma and horrors of his early life, he does make a genuine attempt to live an honest life. The entity just has other plans. I also think in his early life, the clear love he has for his parents, grandparents, and for Nunya all show that at one point he had genuine kindness and compassion before he suffered lots of trauma and had the entity take a hold of him. Billy, I suppose it could be his genuine desire to be good at points in his life. He aspires to be like the heroes on TV that he watches and wishes his life would be different. At one point in time, he did seem to have a kinder outlook on the world, despite the horrors he went through daily. Billy shows small moments of kindness, but due to his bad childhood, he grows up to become a monster. Nurse, we could say the care she provided to the patients of Crota's Pren throughout her 2 decades of working there. She certainly seemed to sacrifice a lot and pushed herself in order to support them, despite struggling herself. Granted, she turned out pretty evil, but only after the broken woman's words got to her. Before, she did seem to be fairly normal and simply struggling with her trauma. For younger patients like the anxious girl and catatonic boy, it's likely she did provide some genuine care for them. We can also say that she seemed to have a genuinely good relationship with her husband, Andrew, before he died, and treated him with kindness. Myers is very tough, and there's not really anything. It could be argued that he spares people during Halloween, such as the boy he bumps into early in the night, but that's pretty debatable. It's also debatable as kindness, not killing someone. I suppose for Myers' standards though, that would be kindness, is to not just do the impulse thing and do what he does, But again, that's not quite kindness, but for his standard. Hag or Lisa does seem to genuinely want to stop her friend Pam from using the hexes, at least initially, before she later engages with them and gives into them more. It's an attempt to protect her and to listen to her grandmother, which does show kindness. By the end it was too late though, with Pam dying and Lisa later being captured. Doctor, I honestly have no clue for. The best we got was advancing science, but that's not even true. Maybe it could be his decision to do experiments on himself rather than others sometimes. A real low bar there. Doctor is also responsible for killing Otto Stamper, which could be considered a kindness to the world, seeing as Otto is responsible for the Dredge's summoning and appearance within the realm, causing the deaths of the entire Garden of Joy, also as he just seems to be working for the entity. Huntress, it could be her love for her mother, this love being enough that she attempts to be like her in her later life and replicate the care she was given. Unsuccessfully, mind you, but it seems at least she was kind to her mother when she was there and did respect her. Bubba, I guess it has to be that he cares for his family. From his perspective, he believes this to be a good thing, so I think it is done in kindness to them as his family, even if it's clearly not to us. Again, for some of these, I think you have to take on the perspective of the character, sort of get in the head, because, from our perspective, obviously we're never going to see it as kindness. Freddy, there is nothing, and I don't even really want to find something in his case. Dying was his greatest kindness to the world, both times. I guess we can say it was nice of him to take care of the school's grounds. I know it's his job, but I mean, literally, what am I meant to say for this guy? Pig, I guess it could be her care for Jigsaw. Sure, it's a messed up relationship, but she seems to genuinely feel for him and empathize with him. There's a kindness to it, I think. She also seems to take care for and protect the boy in Saw 2 when they're trapped in the Jigsaw game together. There are moments when she could have let something happen to him, but she does decide to protect him where she can. Clown, I think I would have to go with his seeming okay treatment of Maurice. From the best of my memory, we never got any lore that says Clown treats him poorly. Maurice seems relatively well kept with hay around him and getting to rest when the caravan is parked, So I guess that, his seeming favour toward his horse. Spirit is quite a normal person before the realm, so she has quite a few. A big one is that despite her father being really horrible, she does attempt to aid him and help to keep her family afloat. Despite the Yamaoka estate falling apart and her studying, she still gets a job to try and help out her father. She also seems to have a really sweet relationship with her sick mother, who she presumably also cared for quite a bit, with them having some safety out by the estate's cherry blossom trees. Legion's greatest kindness is sort of internal, and it's their love for one another, I think. They seem to have a hatred for everyone else, but I guess at least they support each other and have a strong connection, shown off in their BFFs add-on. They show kindness to one another, even if it's just to one another. Plague's kindness is that she does definitely try her best for her people and does seem to want to genuinely aid them. Even though she is leading them very far astray, she does wild acts of devotion toward them, like removing her own toe as an offering to try and save someone. It's extreme, but I do think she's doing it from a good place, even if we can see it as very flawed. Ghostface was really tough, as he's quite twisted and just a monster really. I went with the fact that he reveals what he's done at the end of his lore. I thought, well, at least he owns up to it and he can give the people of Roseville closure. It's a backwards and distorted kindness, of course, but that's the best answer I've got for him. There's not really kindness there, so I suppose, you know, there's sort of a contextual kindness to that one. Demogorgons could be that it didn't kill some Hawkins residents when it could have, I suppose. No idea really, especially as we don't know which Demogorgon the one in-game is. I guess we could just say that it could just be a peaceful creature toward Hawkins, had it not been for one and the Mind Flayer's directions and control. It'd just be vibing if it weren't for them, possibly. So I guess we can say with it being connected to a hive mind, it maybe isn't as responsible. Oni is a pretty tough one to make a case for, but there is a very shocking action he takes, noted in the Blackened Toenail add-on. After his son Akito injured his leg, Kazan went on what's stated to be one of 100 winter treks to a temple, to pray I suppose for his leg to be healed. There's a definite kindness and love there. He's also noted to spare the boy in his tome lore, despite the boy attacking him and calling him an Oni. There's maybe a level of respect for his bravery with him deciding to spare him. A certain kindness, again, with the context. Deathslinger does seem to have genuine care for his gang. I'm sure his gang weren't the best people, and likely were pretty terrible, but I suppose at least he showed some care for other members of humanity. When one of his members gets captured, he also goes out of his way to go and save them. Quite brutally, mind you, but I suppose I'm just trying to grasp about just any compassion here, so... He does also show some remorse at the end of his lore for the path he went down, and the fact he could have been an honest working man, who could have created great things. Pyramid Head's greatest kindness, I suppose, would be his creation and purpose to help James face up to his guilt. I would argue this is ultimately for a greater good, and although not kind maybe, it's the closest we can get to that. Blight does show some remorse and some desire to change his path when he finds out what his serum did to people. However, I wouldn't quite call this kindness, especially as he goes on right after this to pursue his goal of finding other dimensions. It's not exactly noble. I suppose the Blight serum has had positive effects for some people, and for survivors the use of the refined serum can help them in their survival of the trials, so maybe this could be seen as a marginal kindness in the sea of harm caused by the serum. Twins, I think it's just the genuine devotion between the two siblings. Even this though is a little one-sided, with Charlotte being the much more caring one and Victor being quite erratic and aggressive. There's also a really sweet add-on or charm or something that tells the story of Charlotte adapting one of her toys to feature Victor in it too, showing her love. I forget what it's called though, I'll put it on screen if I find it. Trickster has an outfit that describes him putting on a special show for his greatest fans, calling them all his Valentine. Nowhere in the outfit description does it mention too that he would do any killing at the shows, so maybe this was genuine, but yeah, probably not. I understand that's a huge reach in reality. I guess it's sort of a kind action though, putting on this special show, from a certain point of view. Another thing could be the help he provided to his father when he was young, helping to keep their restaurant afloat and draw attention to it. Maybe at this point in time it could have been out of kindness, before he became what he did, and his father pushed him. Nemesis, it's pretty tough as he's a programmed BOW. I'm going with the fact that he didn't kill Jill when he could have a few times. This is also what I said was his greatest evil though, in my evil video, so it depends how you see it, I suppose. It was an indirect kindness, because it did mean she survived, but it wasn't intentional kindness, so pretty debatable. I I suppose the fact that he is programmed means he probably doesn't have complete control, so whoever the human was that was transformed into the Nemesis originally could have been a fairly kind person, so I don't know. Pinhead, I guess we can say him initially sparing Kirsty Cotton, even though she opens the box, but that takes some selective viewing because he betrays her shortly after. Artist, I would say it's the care she gives to her brother and the caring role she takes on after her mother's death. Her father is abusive and useless, so stepping up to fill that role is very kind and responsible of her. She also seems to have a great care for her friends and followers of her work later on too. Her work inspiring people and helping others. Sadako, I suppose it could be the defense of her mother and the protective feelings she has for her. She seems to love her and act kindly toward her. Dredge, I suppose we can say its eventual release of Maurice, but that's sort of backwards kindness, isn't it? It kidnapped a horse. It shouldn't really get praise for just releasing it again, but hey, we have to stretch it. It does also spare Otto Stamper at the end of its lore, but this is another debatable one, as really out of everyone, Otto should have been the one to face the consequences of the Dredge, being its creator and all. Wesker's greatest kindness would be him saving Chris in the opening of Resident Evil, an act that actively works against him, with Chris eventually being responsible for Wesker's downfall and ultimate death. He also saves him later on from a fatal shot from mind-controlled Jill. His motives do seem to be bad though, with his true desire being that he wants to finish Chris himself, but I suppose it is still a kindness in the moment. He saves his life still in both these instances. Knight's greatest kindness, I suppose, would be him going back to save his boys. He could have just left when he gained his freedom, but instead he got his boys too. You sort of have to leave out lots of context for that one, but it sort of works, I think. They stick together no matter what, and even when entering the realm, seemingly one of Tarhos's requirements was to bring the boys along. Skull Merchant's kindness could be her love and appreciation for her father's work, and her seeming desire to gain what she does for him in some sense. Granted, the way she shows appreciation is by becoming the monster of his stories, which isn't quite kindness or even close, but I think that vague desire she has there is the closest we'll get. Singularity is hard, as I think it's not right to attribute Hux's actions prior to him becoming sentient as his own. Otherwise I could just say his help in constructing humanity a new home or something like that, but that wasn't really him. With that said, he doesn't do anything kind once he gains sentience, so I guess we have to go with that. I guess he pretends for a little while, doesn't he? He continues to keep up the facade, which I suppose indirectly helps them. So I don't know, maybe that. Xenomorph spares and doesn't seem to want to attack Jonesy during the Nostromo incident. Granted, this is probably because of Jonesy's size and lack of use as a reproductive vessel, but it's the best I've got for kindness. Chucky is supportive toward his child, after some time admittedly, but he does seem to show support for his child. He shows love toward Tiffany, I suppose, sometimes. Lots of asterisks in this one. That's the best I've got. He does also kill her, which is why I'm saying that. Unknown is really tough, as we actually have no idea what its motives even are. We don't even know what it is. Therefore, it's really hard to discern what it's done that could be considered kind. I guess we could say its actions against the entity, and its seeming desire to fight against it or resist it could be seen as a kindness to the greater world. Vecna, I guess we could say his willingness to hold back in the realm. That's the best I've got for him. He does seem to have a willingness to play along with the entity and nerf himself, which is ultimately a kindness in the sense that the survivors have a greater chance of escape against him and don't just get instantly deconstructed like in the Mori. Dracula, for all his flaws, seems to have a genuine love for his wife, which is a kind aspect to him, even if he is otherwise a complete monster. This seems to be one redeeming aspect, I suppose. Houndmaster's greatest kindness is, I suppose, her care towards Snug and the other dogs. It does become a messed up relationship later on, but initially it seems very pure and just a case of her genuinely caring for the puppies. What minor redemptions do you think are within these evil characters? Let me know down below. Thanks, and goodbye.